Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Today we will be discussing Elizabethan Theater. First we would go into the history of Elizabethan Theater. Initially few professional theaters were found at the beginning of the Elizabethan period. The period began with Queen Elizabeth's reign in 1558 and lasted until the theaters were closed in 1642. The performances were held either outdoors or in town halls, banquet halls or inns. The stages and scenery, if any was used, were temporary. Wealthy gentlemen and ladies funded and licensed troops and occasionally provided costumes from their own closet. Each company catered first to their sponsor and would get permission to travel or perform in another company's area. Until theatres were built at turn of the 17th century, the performances of the plays was for a wealthy household and their guests. That simply means that the performances were not held for the common man. The evolution of Elizabethan theatre. The first theatres that were found in Elizabethan age was in inn-yards. The strolling players performed in different places and earning money. The inn holders offered shelter to these strolling players and they used to perform in their inns. Temporary stages were erected by the actors there. The capacity of inn yards was 500 people and the inn yards were considered as the first form of commercial Elizabethan theatre. The inn-yard theatres have seen the peak from 1576 to 1594. Some royal regulations were found in Elizabethan age for the theatres. Because the acting troops were privately funded and permitted to travel, there was a very little control over the material they presented. That simply means that there was no censorship on the material they were performing. Queen Elizabeth grew her powers was to bring the theatre under the stricter government regulations. Between 1559 and 1572, she outlawed religious or political plays, put licensing of the performance under local control, requiring officials to censor anything illegal, and made the rank of baron the lowest able to sponsor a troupe. The ranks from baron and higher were baron, viscount, earl, marquis, and duke. Women were also permitted to sponsor a troupe, but again they had to be the rank of baroness or higher. The first troupes. In 1574, the first royal patent for an acting troupe was given to James Burbage, 1530 to 1597, and Leicester's Man. The patent mean they didn't have to receive a local license to perform, but received authority from the Master of Rappels of the Queen's Court. London theatre was expanding with the population, and uprising critics wanted to do away with the performances altogether because of their immoral nature. To appease this, in 1581, the Master of Revels was granted the sole authority to license any performances, and by 1598, any playhouses as well. The Queen's Men were established as the only professional company allowed at many locations in London in the attempt to curtail the number of actors and performances in the city. To keep the quality of players and performances, however, in 1594, the Lord Chamberlain and Lord Admiral each established their own troupes to play in the London suburb. The first troupes. All three of these troupes consisted of actors recruited from their company, making them the highest quality group possible. Edward Allen was the lead actor of Admiral's Men and the Burbage family, and William Shakespeare were the best known actors from the Chamberlain's Men. Each company was granted its own playhouse, marking the first time that an acting troupe had complete control and responsibility over where they performed. Troupe members. Each performer could be a shareholder, meaning they own the part of the financial responsibility and reward, or a hired man, meaning someone contracted to perform with the company as either a supporting role or as a stagehand to help with costumes and line prompts. Hired roles also included young boys who were apprenticed to play the girls and young women because female performers were not yet allowed. These boys could be between 10 and 20 years old. Most companies had behavior guidelines that were punishable by fines, such as being late to the rehearsals or performances and wearing costumes outside the theatre. Play preparation. Acting troupes had to develop an extensive repertory, a number of plays that they could perform in rotation in order to keep an audience. They had to purchase plays and pay for their licensing. It was about 3 weeks between the purchase of a play and its first performance. The master of revels approved the play or took out any objectionable passages, giving the company very little time to rehearse. Sides were written, sheets that only had the actor's line and the 3 words clue for each. In order to know when to be on stage, there was also a list of scenes with the actors in each and a list of necessary props and costumes. The book holders was responsible for writing all of this and for prompting the actors or reminding them of their lines during the performances. All of this was written by hand. 2 main influences on playwriting: Seneca's plays from ancient Rome and contemporary Italian plays. Seneca's plays gave structures, especially the use of 5 acts and the demise of character to emphasize the moral lessons. Political and economic issues drastically changed the theatre during Queen Elizabeth's rule. Originally, plays were still based on Greek myths and plays or on stock characters, but after Elizabeth's victory over the Spanish Armada, many writers felt compelled to use England's history as subject matter. The language expanded from traditional rhyme verse to both blank verse and prose, which became a standard in comedies for less educated characters.